Hello chess friends and welcome to your side of chess channel and welcome to an amazing game from the round 5 of the SuperUnited Rapid and Blitz chess tournament that's going on now in Zagreb in Croatia. We have here the Indian derby between Gukesh against Vidit Santosh Gujrathi with really a spectacular trap in one particular moment. It's actually a trap in the early state of the game. It's really crazy to see sometimes top GMs, the strongest players in the world, getting trapped in the early state of the game. Really a crazy game in my opinion, really one of the best chess games so far played in the event. And before this round 5, the leaders of the top event were the grandmasters Vasily So and Fabiano Caruana. Both of them after 4 rounds had 3 points, but of course anything can change. Still we have this blitz section, many rounds have to be played, so nothing is over. But let's dive now into this crazy game between Gukesh against Vidit Santosh Gujrathi. So with the white pieces here, Gukesh opened with the move e4, e5 by Vidit, knight to f3, knight to c6, and we have now the move g3, which is sort of a King's Indian attacker trying to do g3, d3, knight to d2, and then slowly but surely in some lines even push the pawn to f4, liberating the f file, and then you're trying to play in sort of a King's Indian style. Knight to f6, d3, bishop to c5, targeting in some lines the f2 square, bishop to g2, d6 castling, and now h3. Prophylactic idea here by Gukesh, not allowing bishop to g4 to happen, then you could have some trouble around the square f3. a5 by Vidit, good move I would say, not allowing some ideas of a3 b4, but also after potential c3 d4, simply retreating with the bishop on this diagonal and keep everything compact here on dark squares. We have now c4 by Gukesh, targeting immediately the d5 square, but the downside of course when you play the structure is that you leave also some weak squares behind. So now here Vidit has a clear idea, a clear chance around the square d4. We have h6 by Vidit, knight to c3, normal development, and now after move knight to h7 we have now a theoretical novelty by Vidit Santosh Gujrathi, but in my opinion this is the most logical move. Now basically Vidit is playing in sort of a King's Indian style. He's trying to do now the move f5 and of course somehow get use of the f file, getting the light square bishop into the game. So now the game spices up. I think from this point on it becomes really a dynamic game for both players. King to h2, improving the position of the king, and I think here the positions should be pretty equal. But now the real fun starts. After move f5 that Vidit played here, Gukesh has to play, I think, here e takes f5, because if you don't take, then there is this breakthrough idea with the move f4, then g5 could happen, g4. Suddenly, if you flip the board here, you see now, if white doesn't react, f4 is going to happen, and I think black has actually turned things over. Black is actually playing in sort of a King's Indian style. Of course, it's not the King's Indian, but I'm sure you're probably familiar with these ideas of the common King's Indian, where we play f4 and then we destroy our opponent basically many times with this light square bishop around the square h3. So that's why Gukesh had to really react here after move f5. He played now e takes f5, bishop to f5. Now Vidit's bishop comes in a beautiful way into the game, and after move bishop to e3, Gukesh is forcing now a trade of pieces. He doesn't want to tolerate, of course, such a great activity of black's pieces, but of course Vidit is not taking. If you play bishop to e3, f takes e3, then white has here dynamic chances with d4, e4, whatever the position is of course allowing. So that's why for bishop to e3, queen to d7, bishop to c5, d takes c5, and you see now Vidit has now a great chance around the square d3, but that's the actual trap here that Gukesh prepared. After d takes c5, Gukesh played now the amazing knight to h4, and the best way for black to proceed here is to play the move knight to d4. Simply get use of your beautiful square on d4. If this is taken, of course, then you can play rook to b8, picking up also this pawn, but the square d4 would be very interesting here for black. From this point on, I think strategically black should be maybe even slightly better because of this powerful knight. After knight to d4, of course, white would challenge this knight, but then you retreat. f4, maybe this one. Of course, both players don't have to play the game like this. I'm just showing you maybe here top engine line. But after knight to f4, rook to f4, the issue is now that you can never none of these lines you can never really take out this pawn on d3. That's the issue, because you get this one, bishop to d3, you have to cover, and now the bishop is lost. Even if you take with the queen here, knight to f5 is going to happen. You see now, even if you pick up the queen, then knight to e7 in between attack against the king, and now you pick up the queen and you up a piece, game over again. So I'm showing you this because here in the after move rook to f4, you can never pick up this pawn on d3. But after move knight to h4, Vidit played that immediately. He played queen to d3 anyway, and that's now the huge blunder. That's now the beautiful trap here that was played by Gukesh. Even if you try bishop to d3, again, this idea bishop to d5, cutting off here the connection between the queen and the bishop, and the bishop is lost. So that's why after queen to d3, Gukesh played now the amazing bishop to d5 anyway. The king drops back, and now a stunning idea, queen to e1. And look at this. Gukesh trapped Vidit's queen in the early stage of the game. We're now in move 16, and the game is almost lost, I would dare to say. What should you do? Even if you liberate here, of course, the diagonal for the queen doesn't have good squares. You play something like this, then rook to d2, and again the queen doesn't have any escape room. So really crazy stuff that you get your queen exposed like this. After move queen to e1, Gukesh got challenged in this way. Vidit is battling with move g5, but now rook to d1. Anyway, after queen to f1, that's the line that here Vidit has to accept. Queen to f1, g takes h4. Okay, he got some compensation. He got the rook and the knight. And the pawn, of course, for the queen, but it's a different story. This is too powerful here. The king is endangered here. White's king is pretty solid. There is now this file. The bishop is working in a good way. The knight can be included into the game. So from this point on, the game becomes simply a one-way ticket in White's favor. So we have now queen to e2, h takes g3, f takes g3, and after move e4 that Vidit played. Now I think again a good move here by Gukesh. He played now the simple bishop takes c6, because I think again the knight could be maybe pretty annoying to handle if the knight jumps on d4. So that's why bishop to c6, and after bishop b takes c6, of course we have reached out this position in which, of course, again White should be much better. So after b takes c6, Gukesh continues with the normal queen to h5, hitting this pawn, hitting the bishop, hitting also this pawn in some lines. Here Vidit continues with rook to f6, and now g4, simply kicking away the bishop, bishop to g6, and now queen to c5. Maybe not the optimal way here for Gukesh to proceed. Better was maybe queen to h6, trying somehow to pin also the knight, maybe not allowing this bishop to breathe. So this was maybe more important, connecting here two pawns here in a potential endgame. Gukesh could also have here two connected paths. But okay, queen to c5, White should be still much better in this particular position. Knight to g5 by Vidit, and now h4, knight to f3, king to g3, rook to e8, and from this point on, Gukesh started to play not in the best way. So after rook to e8, of course, Gukesh has some problems, because the Vidit wants, of course, to push this pawn on the e file. And the best way to battle against this is to try rook to d7. So if, for instance, e3 happens, then you have this resource and you're pretty solid, I would say. Again, game over here for black. But Gukesh tried queen to e3, which is not really the optimal way to proceed, because the queen is should not be used as a defensive piece. The queen should not be used as something that simply blocks out now one pawn. Still, again, White is slightly better, but it's complicated now the game to play. Both of them had not so much time on the clock. So queen to e3, too passive move. Rook to d7 with rook to e7 would have been the best defensive idea for Gukesh. But after bishop to h7, Gukesh plays another passive move, knight to e2 here, as he is again trying just to somehow play defensively. Again, the better choice is to play more actively, rook to f1, and then trying to do something here on the f file, competing against this rook. Maybe then go with your knight out forward. So after knight to e2, actually, believe me or not, the game is equal again. From a +5 evaluation, Gukesh messed it up to 0.0 evaluation when it comes to computer analysis. knight to e2 from this point on. Actually, it's very, very complicated now even to play the game with the white pieces. Knight to e5 here by Vidit. Good move, of course. Look at this. Rook to f3 is going to happen. This bishop is protecting the pawn. The rook is coming. The knight is very active. Very, very messy game now suddenly for Gukesh. Queen to c5, rook to f3, king to g2, and now knight to g4. Look at this. Very, very intense game now. Gukesh is having problems, and actually I kind of felt here that even Vidit took over here. Not so easy to find any good defensive resource now for white. So again, in the next move, again, Gukesh makes another mistake. Rook to d7. A better choice is just to deliver check. After knight to f6, you have to compete here in the g file because the rook could come into the game, and after something like c5 you take, then after something like bishop to f5 you get out of the g file attack. That's the most important part. But after rook to d7, look at this, rook to g8 now by Vidit, and actually you're getting destroyed here on the g file. After queen to d4, that Gukesh played, knight to f6 by Vidit, and it's game over almost. So here after king to h2, we have now e3 by Vidit, which is again not the optimal way to proceed. Maybe just for fun, if you like, pause the video and try to see now. I would even dare to say the winning idea here for black suddenly. So black moves and wins the game. What would you do now in this particular position? Okay, the best way here for black is actually to deflect again the queen from this diagonal to somehow get this knight finally into the game. After something like queen to e5, rook to f2 you can play, and then you can start to push the pawn. But of course, if the queen takes, then this knight is coming into the game. Then you have some resources, and then you have some great attacking chances. After king to h2, we have now the move e3, which is not the optimal way. And after rook to e7, again, Vidit had here the opportunity to play the move c5, deflecting the queen from the attack against the knight. For instance, you try something like queen to c5, then look at this. Again, the knight is coming in a beautiful way into the game. You're trying this one, knight to e5, discovered check, and now you're getting simply destroyed. Even if you get the king here after rook to if you play king to g1, king to h1 here, of course, then rook to h3 is immediately checkmate. If you play king to h2, then again a new check by the bishop. So white would simply get destroyed by the really beautiful piece activity that black has gained here. So very, very messy. After rook to e7 that Gukesh played, here we have rook to f2, and that's exactly, again, not the best move now for Vidit. But both of them, as I said, had not so much time on the clock. Again, the c5 move was simply the best move, somehow trying to deflect the queen from the defense, from this really nasty diagonal. And after rook to f2, it's actually a draw, because here after a couple more moves, Vidit just repeated moves, and both players agreed to a draw. What to say? Gukesh had everything in his hands, but messed up the whole attacking idea in the later stage of the game. Vidit took over, but didn't win the game. Also made a couple of blunders. So I think it's a fair draw then afterwards, because it was a really crazy game between these two Indian top GMs. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to see some other games that we have analyzed so far from this event, check out our commented chess games. Here's the link of our playlist, and we'll follow, of course, some other game from this SuperUnited Rapid and Blitz chess tournament in Croatia. You can also check out my later analysis, and what to say in the end, chess is the best, of course.